Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Deeper Than Know podcast. I'm your host, Bennett Maxwell, and today we're having a meaningful conversation with David Sliman. With years of experience building and leading successful sales team, David shares his insights on relationships, asking impactful questions, and redefining what sales really means. If you're ready to elevate your business development and sales strategy, this episode is for you. Let's get started. Welcome to another episode of the Deeper Than Know podcast. Today I have David Sliman. Did I say it right?
You said it right, man.
Okay. Today I have David Sliman on the podcast. David, welcome.
Hey, great to be here, man. Bennett, good to see you again.
So David and I connected, I don't know how, but through your podcast. And then it just so happens that you're in Park City, I'm in Pleasant Grove, and we live an hour away from each other. So
Yeah.
we finally got a lunch on the books for next week, which I'm excited about.
I'm loving it, dude. I'm loving it. Now, listen, I really enjoyed our time together, and I know we're going to always stay connected. I really feel that way. So appreciate you having me on the show, and excited to dive in.
David, can we start with a minute or two of your background?
Yeah. Oof, man, I've been in the marketing and advertising space since 1999, real early. And it started more in the print space, then it evolved into the print and digital space. And then I started a franchise company. I built a franchise company and sold that. And now I do a lot of consulting work for organizations who are really looking to up their game for their sales team members, their sales organization. I look at sales frameworks. I do coaching. I do speaking events. I do all that kind of stuff at this point. So that's kind of the long and the short version. And when I first started, I was a franchisee, and then I evolved over those years of really learning how to run and operate and build businesses.
Well, let's start with that. What franchise business were you a franchisee of, and then also the franchisor?
Yeah, back in 1999, I had an opportunity to become a franchise in a company called Our Town America, and it was and they're still around. But it's a really unique marketing program that targets new movers, people who just move into the area. They send out a personalized direct mail package of the area businesses and services. So it was a great franchise for me. They were kind of in their early legs at that time with that format. And I had a great opportunity to have a mentor who was the president of the organization and help me really build that franchise. And it really is a sales-driven franchise. So I had a lot of sales development, a lot of sales coaching. It was the B2B, going into businesses, meeting with small business owners, presenting a product, building value, and developing relationships. And it was a great product at that time, especially at that time, back in 99. And as time went on, Phoenix is a growing market, and that's where I was leading that franchise and heading it up. And it was just perfect timing. I thought the product made sense, and little did I know that I was going to get such a great education, not only in the sales realm, but also in the education in the business world, for sure.
Let's focus on the sales part. I am a big proponent because I started in door-to-door sales. I'm like, sales is everything. There's not a conversation you have that isn't a sales. I'm trying to sell you on the idea that everything's a sell, right? And I do believe that. So one, why is sales so important to you, and what caused you to gravitate towards that profession?
I think it's just what you said. Everything's a sale. Listen, a sale occurs on every conversation, or a sale occurs in every opportunity that you speak with somebody. Either, and like in sales in general, like when trying to set an appointment, either they sell you on the idea of why they should meet with you, or you sell them on the idea of why they should. And I learned that very early. And I always say I'm a sales guy at heart, but I was lucky enough to learn to run and build and operate businesses. But the world is constantly, everything that comes at us, right? Whether it's on social media, or you're looking at a website, or you're driving down the street and you see a billboard. Ultimately, it's sales. It's messaging to try to build value with somebody or draw interest from somebody to either talk or meet with you. And I think I've always really hinged on the value of the industry, because I interacted with a lot of people through the years. And I'm not trying to say that I was selling everybody, but I really want to sell them on the idea of why we should be having a conversation and why we should be engaged. If I feel there's value to it, I'm not going to jump into it myself. But realistically, I think there's to have that skill, especially for someone coming fresh out of college or moving into the business world, or if you've been in business for 25 years, you
Yep.
have to be able to engage with people and engage with business people or professional people and build value in conversations. I think that's what people really want. They want value out of conversations versus just bullshit, so to speak.
To me, I think the key to like professional sales versus like pushy car salesmen
Mhm.
is building the value. And then how do you build the value? I think it comes from questions. The worst thing that because I'm so big into the questions and not wasting my time or their time about talking about a feature that they don't give a damn about. You know what I mean? Like it all starts with the questions. And when people just start shoving shit down my throat and they're like, you should buy, like right now, I'm going to the bathroom between podcasts and you need to buy Heartland. What, like, you didn't even ask me what I have yet. You
Yeah.
don't, like nothing. So, anyways, talk to me about the importance of questions and value building on the sales versus a lot of people hear salespeople and they're like, annoying door-to-door salesperson, car salesperson, but that's not professional sales. What's the difference?
Well, I think the biggest thing that I really focus on is understanding your prospect's challenges or understanding the challenges of who you're speaking with. And one of the things that I really train the organizations that I work on is start speaking the language of your prospects. Understand and really identify before you even go in what their challenges are. And I have a technique we call the power statement. It's not a value proposition and it's not a pitch. What
Hmm.
we train our organizations to do is develop a power statement, and it starts top down. I mean, from the CEO, people who are, running things, to the people who are on the front lines leading the charge. But ultimately, if you can lead with challenges and really identify before you walk in what those challenges are and let them know that you address them, you can eliminate really a lot of objections. And a matter of fact, if you're hearing a common objection, I always recommend that you lead with that challenge because you just dissolved the objection before you even had to deal with it.
Yeah.
And then you make such a huge point, right? I mean, we always hear this, and God gave us, 2 ears and one mouth for a reason. But you have to ask the right questions. And I think that goes back to understanding the challenges of your prospects and being really aligned with the type of targets and the businesses that you're going to be engaging with. You can't just be going in cold. You've really got to understand what their challenges are so that you, one, ask the right questions, two, understand what their challenges are. And again, going back to what you started with, Bennett, being able to build value in the conversation.
Yeah. Asking the right questions, so key. And I think another big point to sales is, okay, now I know the right question to ask. And it's like,
Mhm.
a great question to ask is why haven't you bought my service before? Right. I'm going to get your objections out. But if I say, why have you not bought my services before? And you say, oh, because I haven't thought about it. And I say, okay, next question. It's like, no, why are you meeting with me? What do you hope to get in this sales presentation?
Yeah.
Great question. But if
Yeah.
they say, I don't know, just looking,
Yeah.
you have to keep going because they're not just looking for what? Oh, just looking to find out more information. Find out information about what? About your services. Why do you want to hear about my services?
Right.
And if it doesn't go to because I want to increase profitability and I want to increase revenue, then you haven't gone far enough. So,
So
anyways, definitely on the same page with you on that.
we're so on the same page. What have you looked at anything like this in the past before? And if you have, what maybe why didn't you decide to go with it? Like, you've got to dig deep, man. I mean, there are layers, and I think what happens is sales professionals get so wrapped up in wanting to tell the prospect about what they do that
Yeah.
they just don't put enough damn time in the idea of understanding what the prospect has done and what kind of experience they've had so far. And I love your question. Why haven't you looked at the
I
program?
lead I lead all sales presentations with those two questions. Why don't you already have this? Usually that's the second one. Why are you meeting with me?
Yeah.
And the goal of that is to get all of their wants out,
Yeah.
right? But you have to ask and you have to understand a smoke screen, just like when you go to the mall and you probably need help looking for what you want. And you walk in and they say, can I help you find anything? And you say, nope, just looking, like
Yes.
that's the smoke screen. Okay. We know that we do that. That's just a response. How do you keep going. So why are you meeting with me? Why are you meeting with me? Why are you meeting me? Why else? And then the other question, why haven't you already got it? And then it leads right to what you just said on a good sales presentation. I mean, you're not having objections. I remember people shouting me on door to door. You make good money on a solar deal. You make eight
Yeah.
grand or something, and you're like, "Hey, rookie, I'm going to come in your area. You're going to shadow me. I'm going to knock the doors, whatever." And you knock the doors. You give a great presentation. You know all of the objections before they bring them up, so they don't have any objections. And they're like, "Man, I wish I would have knocked on that door. I would have sold that. That was the easiest sell ever. I would have made that money." And you're like, "Sure,
Yeah. Right.
sure."
Right.
Sure, you would have. Go do it then. I'm gonna leave and we're gonna see how you do. But
Right.
there's so much more to it. You look at a good sales presentation and you don't have the objections because you're hedging them off before they come in.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the discovery step is which is where we're talking about the questions, right? It's just such a pivotal part of the presentation because it really dictates. Listen, you can have a set presentation framework, but if you do a really good discovery step, it really dictates on where you need to put pressure and building
Yeah.
value on the presentation. And if you can identify that in the discovery step, you're right. You're almost eliminating objections, but more importantly, I always call it the building the value. Really, I mean, if you're eliminating objections, you're building value. And
Yeah.
objections are okay, man. Listen, uh, objections do create sales. They give you an opportunity to build more value. If you don't have somebody objecting or you don't have somebody asking questions, so to speak, then the engagement that you're not drawing enough engagement. I mean, I do want some questions for sure.
Yeah. Um, Another thing on the questions, like I've heard on the don't bring up objections if they don't have them. I don't believe in that. I'd love to know your opinion on that. If I'm in a solar presentation and then a big objection is, well, what if they're moving in 2 months and they're not thinking about it? I don't want to sell them, leave, and then they're like, oh crap, we're actually going to move in 6 months. Do I want to do this? So that's one of the common objections. So as I'm saying, why haven't you bought my solar? Why haven't you bought my product yet? If they don't say moving, I bring it up for them. And is moving a concern for you? Some people don't go solar or haven't gone solar because they're worried about moving.
Yeah.
Do you bring up objections if they don't bring them up? Do you recommend that?
I'm okay with that. I really am, especially if it builds value in what you're doing, because you know that by asking that question, you're going to be able to answer it in a way that's going to build more
Yeah.
value for them. So,
If the objection comes up with when
yeah,
I'm there,
yeah.
resolved. If it comes up when I'm not there and they go to Google or their neighbor, you're rolling the dice.
Right, right. That's the key. So, and I think you really have to tailor it to exactly what you're talking about. You know, the industry, again, it comes back to the research and understanding the challenges of the prospect, right? There's some things that you can just throw out there right away in that will build value or give you a stepping stone to and not be a negative. Now, and open-ended questions, yes or no. I mean, that's fine, but you've really got, again, we got to talk about digging more. You got to peel back that damn onion, man, and
Yeah.
really dig a little bit more versus saying it. I will say this, it very similar to you. One of the very first questions, I'm huge on this. So when I start my meetings, I always, and this is the most, and it's so simple. It sounds simple, but in all the training I've done, I don't see it being done the way it should be done. First thing you need to do is always set the agenda. Okay.
Mhm.
Prospects and people in general, we're all human. We get nervous when there's uncertainty, right? So if you can draw an agenda that drives some uncertainty, and it could be as even, just say, hey, I want to, obviously ask you some questions about what you're doing with this, and I'd like to talk to you a little bit more about my product. And, at the end, I have a really good feeling you're going to like this. I'm going to ask you for an opportunity to earn your business. I mean, you can even say that from the beginning, and it
You
just,
have to. You have to. And then it releases the pressure.
it releases because
And everybody's
everybody's
scared
on the
of it.
same page, right?
Yes.
There's
So
no uncertainty. It doesn't get uncomfortable. It's like, I already told you I'm going to do this. And
I,
obviously people go, well, I mean, I don't know if I'm going to do this today, but I said, well, that's my opportunity.
that's my job,
Yeah.
right? If you don't do it today, that's on me and that's okay, right?
Yeah.
Um, I do that on my first slide is the agenda, and the last thing on the agenda, whether it was when you're selling door to door, it's all about speed. Like I want when I did smart home systems,
Yeah.
security systems through Vivint, you're literally leaving the house. You knock on the door, give them a presentation. 45 minutes later, you're leaving, and the technician's walking in to install. It's that quick.
Gotcha.
It's same days every single time. But that scares a lot of prospects and it scares some of the sales reps.
Yeah.
I've just built that in my first little slide. It's like, I'm going to explain this. 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 And at the end of it, if I've answered all of your questions and we've determined that this is the product that is best for you, I'm going to ask you to buy it. Does that
Yeah.
sound fair? And they say, yeah, that sounds fair. If I get to the end of the presentation and we see that's not a good fit, I'm not even going to ask you to buy it. Well, I'm not going to get to the sales presentation because my next slide is what what you just said, right? Imagine going into a sales presentation and within the first 5 or 10 minutes, you know everything they want and everything they don't want. Assuming that you have the product to fulfill it, you have to be a dummy to not be able to close that deal, right? So it's all in that agenda. I love that you brought that up,
Yeah.
followed by the questions. And then, I mean, do you get the same? So if you do the agenda right and you ask that question, is that fair if I ask you to buy, right? And you kind of judge their response.
Yeah.
Then I'm going to move into what you want, what you don't want. If I get through that, I'm a 90% close rate, right? Because either I'm going to just leave the call right there or I'm going to finish the call and close them, but I'm not even going to go down the path if I know I can't deliver them what they want.
Yeah, yeah. I think you can determine at that point if you're really going to be in a good position to move this thing along. And that's why that discovery step is so critical. You just got to be able to be very disciplined to ask. Like, and again, the way you started off, asking the right questions, setting the agenda, getting everybody on the same page. Because again, let's be honest, if they agree to meet with you, whether
Very
they
interesting.
just looking or not, listen, how many times you go walk? I love going to, listen, I love going to car lots. Okay. I love the deal of buying a car. Okay. It's so much fun for me. But the first question you go, so looking for a car. So what brings you here today? Just looking. And it's
Yeah.
like, it's what happens, man. But I really enjoy that aspect of it because realistically, it's an opportunity. If they're looking, if they're meeting with you, there's some sort of interest, whether they're showing it or not. But that's your job to draw that out. And I'm big on saying an opportunity to earn your business. Because that's all I'm trying to do the whole time. I'm trying to
Yeah.
build enough value to earn their business. I'm trying to have the right dialogue to earn an appointment. And so many times I train these days, everyone's like, well, I got to go out and get an appointment. I got to go out and get it. And I do agree with that. I mean, I want that motivation, but damn, man, earn the right for their time. Say things that will build value to earn the right to have time with them, earn the right for their business. And that's
Mhm.
where really feel true sales techniques come in. And again, they are techniques. These aren't trickery or anything like that. It's just understanding what their needs are, filling those voids and building enough value to have that business.
Exactly. On that first, I'm calling them slides because I always use slides. Not that I'm ever showing my clients the slides, but I like them to make sure that I hit all of the points. So you're going over the agenda
Yeah.
and talking about building trust and earning their time. You say, I'm going to ask you what you're looking for in solar. I'm going to ask you what you don't want in solar or franchising or whatever. I'm going to get to the, and then, so I'm telling them, I'm going to ask you everything you want. And I'm going to make sure I resolve all your concerns or find out what your concerns are.
Yeah.
And at the end of the presentation, if I can't give you all the things that you want and exclude all the things you don't want, I'm not going to ask you to buy. But if I can, I am. Does that sound fair? And they're
Yeah.
like, sure, sure. And then you throw in it's because I don't want to waste your time. I'm busy too. I don't want
Yeah.
to even do an hour long presentation if this doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
And then people are like, okay, cool. This guy is a straight shooter, And I think giving those like maybe overly honest or authentic phrases like I don't want to waste your time. I don't want to waste my time. I'll be out of here in 10 minutes if I can't give you what you want and exclude what you don't want. People are just like, okay, cool, done.
Get real, man. Get
Yeah.
real with this stuff. And I'm big. I am. I'm big on I like the slides. Now, sometimes, like in the business I was in, there was a lot of show and tell, right? We had postcard programs, we had magazines. I did envelope. I mean, I did all kinds of direct mail, and then I did digital. Got into that, so there was a lot of show and tell with that, which I liked. But I was taught very early. I can't believe I was talking about this today. I was taught on this 8-step presentation. Okay.
I,
I mean, there were probably people in front of me who were just like, come on, dude, like get in. But I was so engaged in my 8-step. And then after
yeah.
it becomes so natural, right? I was kind of just pulling it all together with the slide book and going through the slide book and the slides. But it was a really good way and was a good discipline because I didn't know any better. I mean, I was 24 years old. I had a mentor. He's like, you should do it this way. And I was lucky enough to be in the arms of somebody or being mentored by somebody who had a huge sales acumen. And one of the stories that I love to tell, okay, that
Mhm.
changed my career. And this is another technique, and I don't want to go off track, but I want to talk about this because it's
Yeah, you're
really,
good.
um, this was like early in my career, and I think it was like my first month in, and I like closed. I didn't listen. I didn't close a deal my first month. I just stumbled on a deal, is what I did. Okay, so I didn't close anything. I had a product they liked, and they said yes, and I wrote the deal up, and that was it. So I struggled like the next 3 to 4 weeks. Like I wrote a deal the first week I was out, and I was like, man, this is great. 3 to 4 weeks going by. I mean, I know I'm making progress. I know I'm doing a good job. I'm working my tail off. I can feel it, but I'm not writing deals. And I'm going, man, like what is going on? My mentor at the time said, do me a favor, record your presentation for me. Cause he was down in Florida. And I still have a cassette tape on my mantle. Okay, those little tiny plastic cassette tapes. I popped it in my presentation folder. I recorded like 3 or 4 presentations, and I sent it down to him. And he calls me about a week later, and he says, "Hey, I listened to these, Dave. Do you know what you're doing?" And I said, "I have no clue what I'm doing. Right? I'm just trying to write a deal."
Yeah.
I didn't have the guts to listen to it because even listening back sometimes to my voice, I'm like, ah. But
Same way.
yeah, anyway, I'm sorry for the long-winded story, but it was a pivotal moment in my career. So he calls me and he says, listen, Dave, your presentation is great. Your discovery step is great. You go through the 8 steps or the 7 steps of the presentation at that time. He said, building a lot of value, you're getting some buy-in. But when you get to price and proposal, your voice kind of just drops and the confidence just rolls out of you. Because I had never sold anything in my life at that time. So, and not saying $300 to $500 isn't, and it wasn't a lot of money, but it just for me at that time was even more impactful, right? Like that was a lot of money. So I identified where my hangup was, and it really was the confidence in the pricing. So what do you think I did next presentation? Well, you can't afford not to buy this kind of thing, that kind of confidence. But more importantly, the whole more of that story is, we have these things these days called phones, which can give us some really good analysis on what we're doing. And it's one of the harder things to do is do self-evaluation.
Mhm.
And it was something that, I mean, it was a total pivot in my career because the next month I wrote like 8 deals. The month after that, I wrote like 15. I stopped counting at that point, but it changed everything for me. But if I wouldn't have done that, it might have taken me a lot longer to figure it out. And it's a technique I would recommend.
There's just no way that you can get granular, like into what went well and what went not well, unless it was recorded.
Yeah.
Because you listen, I mean, you're shadowing somebody or whatever on a call, and it's like you're taking notes here or there. But what you can't do is, hey, when you spoke about pricing, your voice went down, and they're gonna be like, no, it didn't, or like, how much, you know what I mean? And then everybody gets a little bit defensive, and you're just like, look right here. When you're asking them, um, if it's okay, if it's fair, if you ask them to buy, you like, and if you can record them even better, you're looking down. Why are you looking down? Why do your lips pierce like this? You're like, that's my little brother because I was recording him and he'd always be like, so yeah, for $99 today, you can. What are you doing? He's like, I don't know.
It's just a reaction, right?
It's a reaction, but you
Uh,
don't know unless you record. And if you could do a video, and then you don't even need to do it in like real sales calls, you just do fake sales calls, which I thought was like the weirdest thing. And now I'm like, let's role play. Let's role play. Just role play me. Just pitch me as if I'm your client. That's what I'm telling people instead of like explain your services. I'm like, let's just role play. I'm going to be the customer.
yeah.
Super, super beneficial. I want to know about your company a little bit more.
Okay.
We talked a ton about sales. What is the service that you're providing to the company specifically, and what stage of company is it best suited for as far
Yeah.
as revenue or size? Any metrics there?
Great question. I mean, I work with organizations who need to elevate the performance of their sales team. I mean, if you want to call it what it is, either their team has gone flat or or they're expanding and they want to move their team to the next level in performance. So I go in and assess their whole sales strategy and framework, everything from their presentation framework to KPIs to profitability to making sure comp plans are right. But I do a lot more in the realm of coaching and training the sales team on sales techniques in the presentation. So one, I come in and look at their framework, and I usually have some tweaks and ideas of how to make that better. And then what I like to do is come in and help the team get educated on delivering a stronger sales framework and keeping control of the meetings and building more value and doing all that. And then I'll work with the team members. And then sometimes I work with the leadership teams, like the management teams or the executive teams, to make sure that that aligns with the CEO and the person who's, their vision. I get organizational alignment. And then I do some workshops, closing workshops or discovery workshops, things like that. And I also will work with, like I said, even CEOs for that matter, making sure that there's alignment for sure.
What would be, is there an ideal like sales team size? If it's a small sales team of 3 guys, is it like, it's not really worth it because you need a sales team of 10 guys? And really what I'm looking at is whoever's listening to this podcast, like, obviously, your shit with sales. Now, who's the best suited to kind of go down that route?
Yeah, I mean, for me, listen, I don't try to put a number on it, right? And here's why. I want to make sure, because listen, I've had companies where I get involved and they say they're ready for sales and they're ready to grow, and they're not. They don't have it set up operationally. There was a company I worked with last year, and I'm not going to name any names, but ultimately they said, we need sales. And we got some salespeople hired and helped them with the current salespeople. We started driving in sales, and they couldn't execute because their operational side was so screwed up. So for me, it's not about size. It's about working with somebody who's ready to grow.
Yep.
Because I can put all the effort in, I can give them the best sales framework, I can train their people up so well and make them, drive results and have them hit benchmarks and goals that we establish. But if the company's not ready for growth, then it doesn't work out. It just doesn't. And that's probably one of the things that I've learned over the last couple of years of doing this consulting work that I've been doing. At first, I was like, yeah, I work with anybody. And I was working with anybody. And then I realized that I've really, over the last year and a half, aligning myself with companies that are ready to grow and strategically have that mindset that, listen, it's going to be some work. We're going to be driving sales, and then we can execute on it.
Yeah. What's the ramp up time? Because I'm assuming you're switching industries, right? You're going to go from a franchise system to food and hospitality over to tech. How long does it take you and your team to go figure out what are the key selling points? What are the key objections that we're overcoming?
Yeah, there's that discovery process, so to speak, and it takes about 30 days really to just get involved and meet with the key players, understand what they're doing currently. So there's nothing really. I mean, there's stuff being done, but as far as the interaction with the team, so that's about 30 to 60 days. After the 60-day mark, or before the 60-day mark, we usually have a really good idea of cleaning up the framework. We got the KPIs. We understand the profitability. We want to know who the key the players are on the team, and then we're going to get engaged on really start training. So it's a 6 to 12 month ramp up plan is what you're looking at for sure.
And that's not that long,
yeah,
which is awesome, because when you do know the sales framework in the business, it is plug and play. You just need to know those key points of why are people buying, why are people not buying my product, how to spin that. Shifting gears, emotional intelligence. That's what I want to focus on a little bit. Sales is hard. It's high paying for the people that are good. Anything that's high paying is because it's hard, right? I mean, there's a larger barrier of entry, and that's supply and demand. We're in a capitalist society. I think emotional intelligence is what keeps the great salespeople, I guess, keep going. And maybe this is more applicable to the door-to-door sales, the people who are able to separate when, knock on the door, do you want some pest control? And they say no. And then you say, crap, I'm worthless and they hate me, right? To say, okay, there's another door. And to really brush that off. For me, I still struggle with it, but every single day and every year, I feel like as I get better, that's the thing that changes my life probably more than anything. Talk to me about that. Did you ever struggle with your personal self-worth and sales and goals?
Again, and I really do a lot of motivate. One of the first sessions we do is mindset in our training with when we get in with the sales teams, because if you don't have the right mindset and understand as humans, how we're wired, then you say these things to yourself and you go, damn, man, is it me? Like, do I suck or what? Or,
Yeah.
like, what is it? So when it comes to a framework like that and the mindset, I try not to put it in a box, but really here's my strategy behind that, because this is how I lived it and how I've interpreted it for myself. Um, and I heard this and I took pieces of it. So what I'm about to say is usually through my experiences, either somebody I worked with or I heard it on, some sort of podcast, or I read a book or something like. So it's a combination of this kind of stuff. I think especially when you're just getting into sales, or you're trying even a new product or moving into a new sales organization, there's three things. You're going to go through three stages. You're going to go through an awkward stage, you're going to go through a mechanical stage, and then you're going to go through a pro stage. Okay. And there's only one thing. Well, there's a few things, but there's three things that you need to do in order to move to those next stages. The first one is repetitions. You have to get repetitions. Once you get the framework down, and once you understand the product and the dialogue that you want to go with, you've got to get reps, right?
Mm-hmm.
You've got it. And I'm not talking, 50 reps, 60 reps. I'm talking thousands of reps, thousands of repetitions. And then the second thing you have to be able to do is have somebody who can help you, like a mentor or a coach, work with you, whether it's a team member, whether it's your manager, whether it's a leader, whether it's maybe someone out of the organization, I don't know. But you have to have somebody work with you to evaluate your progress. And you have to keep identifying on KPIs, and you have to have some accountability, but you got to have somebody there who can really help you and not be so judgmental, but be able to say, hey, dude, you're moving your lips. Like, do you like bring it back? And then the third thing you need to do when it comes down to it is evaluate. And that's where the KPIs come in, right? You need to evaluate. So when you go through this awkward stage, you can usually move through that pretty quickly, especially if you've got sales experience. But the mechanical stage is so important, because you're getting wins. You're still getting your butt kicked a little bit, but you're getting wins and you're making progress. You're moving. And that's the stage you're in the longest. And then you get to your pro stage. But what happens is this: there's a difference, as you know, between motivation and discipline. Okay.
Yeah.
Motivation is doing an action or performing on an action to get a certain result. Okay. For me, discipline is actually the same thing: performing an action to get a result, but doing it over time, and also doing it when you don't want to do it. And realistically, for me, do I like prospecting? Do I like doing that? No, not really. But what I really am in love with is I'm in love with the result. I know
Yeah.
that if I'm going to if I'm going to prospect, I'm going to get an appointment. And if I'm going to get an appointment, I'm going to get a sale. So even though I don't love prospecting, I have the discipline to do it because the result is going to be there for me.
So it's big picture, right? Because if I'm focusing on how much money did I make today, and I'm a commission only sales rep, and I've knocked 20 doors and gotten zero people to even answer me, I'm just like, oh my God, why'd I move to do this stupid job? But if you're like, okay, but I know my numbers, right? I know on average, I usually knock 20 doors. As long as it's the afternoon, I'm getting 10 answers, and 6 of them are setting appointments, and 3 of them are buying, and 1 cancels, and 2 of them get installed, and that makes me 10 grand a piece, so 20 grand, and how many hours? And then you're like, calculate, it's also metrics. And I think that is very helpful in like identifying, okay, I just haven't knocked enough doors. Law of averages will play out.
Yeah.
But at the same time, being careful with my goal is to sell 100 accounts. And if I
Yeah.
don't sell 100 accounts, this is how I'm going to feel. Rather than my goal is to be a better salesperson, to be more fulfilled, to whatever those are, and moving those goals away from the material, I guess, KPIs so much. You still have them, you're still pushing towards them, but you're not attached to the results emotionally.
Yeah. No, I think it's a huge point. And I'm a big believer in commitments. And I'm going to talk to you about this. Okay. Goals are great. You got to have goals. You have to. But essentially, goals are what? They're results, right?
Mhm.
Goals are results. What gets overshadowed some of the time, not all the time, but some of the time, are the commitments you need to make in order to achieve those goals. Like you were just talking about, right? I know I have to make 30 calls in order to, and I'm just throwing numbers out there, but
Yeah,
30
I did
calls,
too.
if I do 30 calls, touches, I know that I'm going to get 6 business owners. And if I get 6 business owners, I know I'm going to get 3 appointments when I meet with 6 business owners. I have an opportunity to set an appointment. And when I give three presentations, I know I'm going to get 1 sale. Like, you have to develop that over time. And I don't think it's something you can do in a week or a month. I think you have, again, it comes back to consistency to be able to break through the thresholds and do that kind of stuff and really manage the activity and monitor it. But you have to be able to do it over time. But once you you said the word, know your numbers. Once you know your numbers as a sales professional, you're going to be able to dictate how much money you want to make, because those numbers aren't going to change after a while. Like they might tweak here and there. You might fall off a little bit, or you might have a really good week and go above it. But overall, you're going to have an average number. So if I know how many touches it takes to get an appointment, know how many appointments it takes me to get a sale, and I know my average sales is, and I know I'm going to make this kind of money, man, I'm just going to press on the gas.
Yeah.
And just go.
Yeah. And then the other thing that I'm always thinking, okay, this is my dollar per hour. So, but what's the top guy doing? Not in my company, but like, what's the top guy in the nation doing?
Yeah.
And how can I get as effective as him? So then you're balancing your time on sharpening the saw versus the work. Consistency is huge. And it's hard to have the consistency without somebody holding your hand, which I think just speaks to the importance of a coach. I remember I did pest control and I broke the company's record. And then and the owner comes out and he's knocking with me. And, I made this sell, I think. And he's like, hey, do you mind if I give you some pointers? Of course not. And then of course I took the pointers straight to heart. He's like, your feet you're standing too close. They're almost touching. That's like, you want to have more of a power stance, just shoulder width apart. And then he goes, you also will move back side to side. You're rocking a lot and you're doing something with and I was like, dude, I'm the number one guy ever, and then I'm like, okay, there's still so much room to go. I think I sold like 400 or 500 accounts. This guy sold 1,000. I didn't even know that, but I needed that coach. Even as a high performer, you still don't know what you don't know. And in order to have that consistency, you need somebody higher level than you saying, hey, here's another little tweak. So I love that.
Tiger Woods has a coach, man. So it's like, are you kidding? Like,
Yep.
If you think you know it all, you don't. That's where you really made the mistake.
And even if you do know it all, you're not doing it all because you don't have somebody holding you accountable. I mean, coaching, just the accountability aside from the knowledge, I think is just as important, if not more. But David, I've really appreciated our time together. Thank you for all of the sales wisdom. I love talking with a professional salesperson, not just somebody who's out there trying to be like, let me shove my product. As long as you just ask them enough times, like kind of Grant Cardone style.
It is.
Just like shove it down their throat.
Totally. And I so much enjoy our time together, and I'm looking forward to getting together because, dude, like we just, we're on the same level when it comes to that. And listen, sales is a craft, and you have to treat it like that. It's something that you constantly can improve. Like you said, I always say sharpen your axe, and you said sharpen your saw. But I believe there's some great stuff out there.
Sharpening your saw sounds way better.
There's podcasts like this, right, that you can listen to. And I just want to thank you for having me on, and I've really enjoyed this time for sure.
Yeah, thank you, David. Where can our listeners connect with you? Learn more about you and your business.
Yeah, so they can check me out at Sales Pro. That's Sales Performance, not performance, but Sales
And
Pro.
we'll throw it in there too.
Yeah, PRPerformance.com. Check me out on LinkedIn. I'm at LinkedIn. Look up David Sliman, Sliman, and we'll throw that up there too. But yeah, listen, I love helping. I'm at the point in my career. I just want to help people personally and professionally and help them elevate their game, because I had a lot of good people who did that along the ways for me. And that's what it comes down to. So yeah, reach out anytime.
Hey, thanks, David.
All right.